My name is Ruth Collins, and I'm 33 years old. I practice law for a living, which means the people who come to me expect clean lines, tidy arguments, and endings that look like closure. Real life never bothers with that. It frays and snags in the places you don't look. Sometimes it unravels under twinkle lights. Christmas at my brother's house is a performance he puts on for the neighborhood. Icicles along the porch gables, a plastic reindeer family grazing on the lawn, the kind of inflatable Santa that wheezes in and out like it's struggling to breathe. Inside, every surface is dressed. Garlands looped around the stair rail like velvet ropes at a nightclub. Candles that smell like the word holiday more than anything you could name. A table so crowded with plates and ribbons and chargers that you have to negotiate with your elbows to set down a glass. I brought exactly 3 gifts for my niece Madison, a sketch set from a small art boutique downtown, a hardcover collection she'd mentioned 3 months ago when she thought I wasn't listening, and a hoodie signed by the YouTuber she never stops talking about. None of it came cheap. None of it was the point. Ruth, my sister-in-law, Vanessa, kissed my cheek with precision. Perfect lipstick, perfect smile. Mark, my brother, clapped me on the shoulder like a colleague he tolerated. The house hummed with carols and clatter and the soft clink of dessert forks on china. I set the gifts near Madison and took the seat that always seems to be waiting for me. Corner of the table, half shadowed, audience to the show. Madison reached for the smallest gift first, tearing the paper with the same careless hunger you see in blockbuster heroes diffusing bombs. She held the signed hoodie up by 2 fingers, checking the tag, not the signature. She tossed it into her lap like it might catch. Then she went for the hardcover collection, the set she'd mentioned on an afternoon in September when we'd crossed paths after school, when she told me about a character who reminded her of someone in her class. She flipped the box open, shut it, shrugged. Finally, the sketch set. I'd wrapped it carefully, the boutique logo tucked under the fold so she'd see it when she pulled the ribbon loose. She didn't look for it. She didn't look at me. And then, with half the laugh and zero hesitation, Dad says you always buy cheap stuff. The room did that ugly, sympathetic thing where people choose laughter like a blanket. It travels fast. Vanessa's smile sharpened. Mark's chuckle sounded like he'd been waiting for his line all night. And I did what I've trained myself to do since childhood. I went very still. I let the words drop through me like coins through a fountain. Plink, plink, wish granted. I held my wineglass midair and watched the teaspoon Christmas lights wink on and off in the window, like the house was blinking at me. Maybe I misheard, I thought. Maybe I was overreacting. But no one corrected her. No one apologized. Not even a token, "Oh, honey, that's not kind." Mark leaned back, pleased. King of a room I've quietly helped pay for more times than anyone here will admit. I don't remember dessert. I don't remember kisses goodnight. I remember finding my coat in a room that smelled like cinnamon and carpet cleaner and walking out into air that felt too clean, like I'd been underwater and didn't know it until I surfaced. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Daniel, how was dinner? I stared at the screen, typed fine and deleted it, typed loud and deleted that too. What word do you choose when humiliation arrives dressed as a family joke? The drive home is 11 minutes. I've timed it in rain and traffic, and once after a panic attack I didn't tell anyone about. Tonight the roads were black glass. Every red light lasted forever. In the rear view my face looked blank in a way that bordered on relief. Not anger, something colder. Clarity holds its own heat. Inside my apartment, I loosened my scarf and stood with my back to the door, listening to the quiet. No music, no laughter, no performance. The radiator clicked softly, an old house heartbeat. My laptop sat where I'd left it on the kitchen counter, still open to a document labeled 2025 budget, draft. I've always kept records. Patterns matter in court, and they matter at home even more. When people lie to you, they count on your memory going soft around the edges. I don't give them that. In another tab lived a different kind of record, one I set up years ago out of love or naivete or something that looks the same in photographs. A shared credit card, my name first, Mark's as an authorized user because he couldn't get approved on his own. There were good reasons then, the kind that fit into texts better than truths. Job loss, bad luck, another layoff, the kind of medical bills that can break a person. Emergencies, we called them. But emergencies keep happening when no one fixes the leak. I could hear Madison's voice, 12 years old and armed with borrowed contempt. Dad says you always buy cheap stuff. The hoodie signed by her favorite creator lay back on my passenger seat under my coat. The art set, the expensive one with the quality paper and blending stumps and charcoal that doesn't dust off your fingers like chalk, had been handled like a grocery list. The book set unopened. The laugh, the laugh, the laugh. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I didn't make a speech to an empty room or practice lines I'd someday throw back across a table. I opened the account portal. While the home page loaded, my phone buzzed again. Daniel, I'm awake if you want to talk. I stared until the screen dimmed. It felt like stepping up to the edge of something and realizing the ground on the other side lined up perfectly with your feet. No leap required. Just a step you should have taken years ago. The site rendered Bluebird Bank in white letters, the kind of branding that wants to be your friend. My fingers moved on their own. User. Password. Two-factor code. The dashboard bloomed into numbers. Current balance, recent transactions, upcoming autopay. I scrolled the history like a case file. Groceries, always groceries. Children's clothes, car repairs. A temporary cell phone bill that became permanent 2 summers ago when things were tight. A streaming service Mark swore he'd cancel. A school supply haul in August. The water heater in spring. Rent. Rent again. Rent again. I clicked into the settings and found what I knew had always been there waiting. Freeze card. The button looked polite, rounded corners, apologetic gray. I hovered and thought of every only this once that calcified into expectation. I thought of every comment Vanessa dropped like a sugar cube into her tea. Some of us just don't have the luxury, while I nodded and added things to my cart for their house instead of mine. I thought of how small I'd made my own life so their stage could look bigger. Before I pushed it, the old part of me, the reliable part, the family helps family part, whispered the lines I used to live by. It's Christmas. Be gracious. She's a kid. Don't punish the kid. But it wasn't punishment. It was physics. A consequence is not a cruelty. It's an answer to a force applied. I clicked freeze. A confirmation box popped up as if asking me to be sure about my own dignity. Are you certain you wish to freeze this card? I clicked yes. The system thought for a few seconds, then returned a final tidy sentence. Card status, frozen. The radiator clicked again. Outside, a siren drifted past and faded. In the window, my reflection watched me watch myself. I waited for guilt to drop down and anchor me to the kitchen floor. It didn't. What arrived instead was that same cold clarity, settling like snow, making everything sharp and quiet. I texted Daniel, home, tired. I'll call you tomorrow. He sent back a heart and nothing else, a gift I could actually hold. I closed the laptop and poured water into a glass like I was learning to drink again. In the living room, I turned off the lamp with the soft shade and let the streetlight paint the trees on my ceiling. My mind began to stack facts like exhibits. $6,120 this year alone, rent 3 times, art camp, groceries, birthdays, bills, a niece who learned laughter was safer than gratitude. People tell you to set boundaries as if it's a craft you pick up on a Saturday with a coupon. Fold once, glue twice, tie a bow. They never mention the part where you do it quietly at 1:14 a.m., in the middle of your kitchen, while your family sleeps inside a house you helped keep warm. I thought of Mark's face when he laughed at the table. Not cruel exactly, just confident. The confidence of a man whose problems always land in someone else's hands. I thought of Vanessa's smirk, the way she held her wine like she was watching an amateur play. I thought of Madison, 12 and bright and learning the wrong lesson fast. The lights outside blinked in a rhythm I could finally hear. For the first time in a long time, the quiet inside my apartment didn't feel like punishment. It felt like a room being returned to its owner. I didn't know it yet, but freezing that card was the warmest thing I'd ever done for myself. By 7:22 a.m., my phone was buzzing like a trapped insect. Vanessa first, her name flashing across the screen in that cheery font she must have picked deliberately. The card isn't working. We're at checkout. What's going on? I stared at it, coffee cup halfway to my lips, the smell of roast beans and quiet morning. It felt too calm for panic to exist. Another message followed. Seriously, Ruth, fix this. We have groceries. Madison's with me. My phone kept vibrating in short, frantic bursts. I didn't reply. Not yet. Then came the third one, in all caps this time. The cashier is waiting. We're embarrassed. What did you do? I put the mug down gently. That was the thing about people like my brother and Vanessa. Embarrassment hit them harder than hunger ever would. By 8 o'clock, Mark himself was calling. I watched the screen light up, listened to the first ring, then let it die. He called again, and again. Eventually, I silenced the phone altogether and got ready for work like I hadn't just detonated something inside my own family. In the office elevator, the reflection of my face in the chrome doors didn't look triumphant. It looked relieved, lighter. I remembered what Daniel once said when I'd canceled a brunch because my brother needed a quick loan. He'd smiled gently. You know you don't have to be their emergency fund, right? At the time, I'd laughed it off, but the words came back now, clean as a verdict. By noon, I had 15 missed calls and a wall of unread texts. The tone was shifting. The guilt trip phase had begun. You're really doing this over a joke? She's 12. She didn't mean it. You're being dramatic, Ruth. You're loaded anyway. What's the big deal? I scrolled through them all like evidence exhibits and set the phone face down. That evening, a knock. Not the quick, polite kind. The heavy, rhythmic one that says the person outside already feels owed something. When I opened the door, Mark stood there, eyes bloodshot, hair uncombed, still wearing his Christmas sweater like he hadn't changed since the party. Hey, he said, as if this was normal, as if showing up uninvited after a barrage of messages was just a brotherly visit. Hey, I answered, keeping the chain on the door for a beat longer than necessary. Then I opened it fully and stepped aside. He walked in like it was still his space, looked around the apartment like maybe he'd spot the money lying in a corner somewhere. You've got a nice place, he muttered, pretending small talk existed. Guess lawyering pays well. It does when you don't spend it all fixing other people's problems, I said evenly. That hit. He flinched, but covered it with a half smile. Look, about the card, that was your lifeline, I offered. He frowned. It's not like that. We just had a big grocery run, and... And? And well, I thought you'd maybe give me a heads up before doing something like that. We're family, Ruth. Family helps each other. He said it like it was scripture, like the words themselves made him righteous. I set my mug down and leaned on the counter. Mark, in the last 5 years, what have you done for me? His mouth opened, then closed. That's not fair, he said finally. You never ask for help. No, I said. I stopped asking because the answer was always no. He blinked, offended. We've always been there emotionally. Emotionally? I laughed. You mocked my breakup. You missed my promotion dinner. You didn't even visit when I was in the hospital for 2 days with that flu. But sure, emotionally present. He shifted, his voice softening, playing the tone he always used when he wanted something. Ruth, it's not about keeping score. It's about love, about showing up. That's rich, I said quietly, because the only thing you've consistently shown up for is my bank account. He frowned deeper, taking a step closer. You're punishing Madison. She didn't mean what she said. It's not about Madison, I said. It's about the fact that you laughed. You didn't correct her. You let your kid think it's okay to mock the person who keeps your lights on. The words hung between us like sharp glass. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he tried the classic reversal, his favorite move. You act like you're better than us now, like money makes you morally superior. I don't think I'm better, I said. I just think I'm done. He blinked, thrown. Done with what? With being your fallback plan. His expression hardened. You can't just cut us off. What about Madison's school trip, her birthday next month, Vanessa's car? Not my responsibility. You're really saying that to your own niece? I'm saying it to you. His jaw tightened. You'll regret this. Mom and Dad are going to hear about how you're treating your family. There it was, the next weapon, dragging the parents into it, making it a morality play. I'm sure they will, I said, stepping toward the door. But you might want to think about what story you're going to tell because mine comes with receipts. He didn't move at first. Then, in silence, he walked past me, muttering, "Unbelievable," under his breath. He yanked the door open but paused halfway through, turning back with the kind of grin that wasn't amusement. It was warning. You always need to be the hero, huh? The good one. Well, good luck keeping that image when everyone knows what you did. And with that, the door slammed so hard the frame shuddered. The apartment fell back into its natural quiet. I stood there a moment, the echo of his voice fading like smoke. Then I reached for my phone. Daniel had texted again. Lunch today, or should I give you space? I typed back, Maybe tomorrow. Just tired. He replied, I'll bring dinner if you want. You don't have to talk. I smiled faintly, the first real one all day. Thanks, I wrote, then hesitated before sending. Finally, I added, I froze the card last night. His reply came after a pause. Good. About time. I stared at those words, short, solid, like stone pillars under a crumbling bridge. That night, I made a list, not of debts or expenses, but of things I'd done that no one ever remembered. 3 rent payments, the water heater, the art camp, the emergency groceries, the birthday gifts, the holidays, the times I said yes when I should have said nothing. At the bottom of the list, I wrote a single sentence. You can't buy respect from people who think you owe them everything. When I turned off the light, the room didn't feel lonely. It felt like something had been cut loose, like a cord snapped clean after years of pulling. I lay there in the dark, one hand resting on the edge of the bed, thinking how quiet defiance feels at first, like peace dressed as danger. Tomorrow, I knew, would bring another kind of storm. My parents. Always the parents. Mark's last line, Mom and Dad will hear about this, echoed faintly like a promise. But tonight, I slept. For the first time in months, I slept all the way through without waking to the sound of someone else's need. When the phone rang the next evening, I already knew whose name would light up the screen. Mom. I took a slow breath before answering. Hi, sweetheart, she began, voice soft, tentative. That tone she used when she was about to ask me to fix something without technically asking. I just got off the phone with your brother. He sounded upset. Did he? I said quietly. He said there was some kind of misunderstanding, she continued. About a credit card? Not a misunderstanding, I said. A correction. A pause. I could hear the soft clinking of dishes in the background. Dad, probably washing up. The sound of normal life continuing somewhere else. Ruth, honey, it's Christmas. Maybe just unfreeze it until the new year. They've got bills, groceries. Mom, I interrupted, my voice steady, not cruel. Do you know how much I've spent on them this year alone? She hesitated. I don't know. You've always been generous. Your brother's had a hard time. I walked to my desk, opened the laptop, and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd kept for years. The one no one knew existed because I wanted proof, not pity. $6,820, I read aloud. Rent, utilities, art camp, school fees, birthdays, groceries, you name it. Silence on the other end. Then, almost a whisper. That much? Yes, and not a single dollar repaid or even acknowledged. Another pause. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked a little. That's not your job, Ruth. It never was. I closed my eyes. Those were words I'd wanted to hear for 10 years. Thanks, Mom, I said softly. But peace never lasts long in my family. An hour later, Dad called. His tone was blunt, no small talk. Your mother told me everything. I called your brother. I braced myself. He's embarrassed, Dad said flatly. And he should be. It's shameful for a grown man to expect his younger sister to bankroll his family. The tension that had been living in my chest all week finally loosened. You really said that to him? Word for word, he replied. I don't know what's gotten into him, but I told him straight. You've done enough, Ruth. More than enough. You don't owe anyone a dime. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My father had never been a man of long speeches or emotion, but this simple validation, felt like a dam breaking quietly inside me. Thanks, Dad, I said. That means a lot. You just focus on yourself, he said. You've carried that boy too long. It's time he stands on his own feet. After we hung up, I sat there for a long while, letting the silence stretch. For the first time in years, I wasn't the villain, the fixer, or the emergency contact. Just Ruth, a person. The next few days passed like an unexpected calm after a long storm. No texts, no calls, no guilt. The first morning of silence, I kept checking my phone every hour, half expecting the usual flood of urgent requests. Nothing came. The stillness felt almost unnatural, like I'd stepped into a room where someone had turned the sound off. Daniel noticed, of course. When we met for dinner that Friday, he raised an eyebrow. You've been quieter, he said. Quieter in a good way. I smiled faintly. I think my phone forgot how to ring. He laughed. That's progress. I wanted to tell him everything. The spreadsheet, the confrontation, the phone calls. But the words stayed tangled somewhere in my throat. Instead, I just said, It feels weird, like waiting for a shoe to drop. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Maybe there's no shoe this time. But he didn't know my brother. By the third day, the quiet started to hum wrong. It wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm breaks, the air too still, too heavy. I knew that rhythm. Mark's pattern was predictable. Panic, blame, denial, manipulation, repeat. Silence for him wasn't surrender. It was plotting. Sure enough, the fourth day, it began again, indirectly, through my mother. She called early in the morning, voice trembling just slightly. "I just got off the phone with Mark," she said carefully. "He says they're behind on bills. He didn't ask for money, not exactly, but—" "But he hinted," I finished for her. "Yes," she admitted. "He said maybe if we can't help, perhaps you could—" I didn't even let her finish. "Mom, if you give him money, it's from your pocket, not mine. I'm out of that loop." She sighed. "I know, dear. I told him the same thing. Your father and I aren't giving him a cent this time." That stopped me cold. My mother had never said that before. "Are you serious?" "I am," she said quietly. "Your father was furious after talking to him. He's finally seeing it, Ruth. We both are." I didn't know what to say. For so long, I'd been painted as the overreactor, the cold sister, the successful one who forgot where she came from. Hearing my parents finally draw a line of their own felt surreal. After we hung up, I sat on the couch staring at the soft blue glow of my phone. No vibrations, no new messages, just stillness. I should have felt relief, and I did for a moment. I made coffee, opened my balcony window, and listened to the morning sounds of the city, the low hum of cars, a barking dog, the scrape of someone dragging out recycling bins. I thought maybe, just maybe, the storm had finally passed. That night, I even allowed myself something new, a bit of peace. I changed the sheets, lit a candle, and let my thoughts drift to normal things. Travel, spring, a new couch I'd been eyeing, but never bought because family comes first. I was mid-scroll through the furniture catalog when my phone buzzed again. Email from Mark Monroe. Subject line, "For the record." The subject line alone made my stomach knot. Mark never wrote emails unless he wanted something documented. His version of events polished like courtroom testimony. I didn't open it. Not yet. I knew whatever words were inside weren't an olive branch. They'd be a weapon dressed as an apology. I turned off the phone, blew out the candle, and stared at the ceiling. The shadows flickering from passing headlights. Daniel's voice replayed in my head. Maybe there's no shoe this time. There always was. I could already feel the laces tightening. The next morning, I finally opened the email. Subject, "For the record," from Mark Monroe. Time, 6:41 a.m. It began exactly how I expected. "Ruth, I'm writing this because talking to you lately feels impossible. I'm still shocked by how you acted over a harmless joke from a kid. I never thought you'd turn into someone who uses money as a weapon. You have no idea what it's like raising a child in this economy. You're comfortable. You should be more understanding. I'm not asking for charity, just $1,500 to cover rent and groceries this month. Please don't make things harder than they already are." No apology, no accountability, just a careful arrangement of words meant to sound wounded. I stared at the screen, reread the number, $1,500, and felt that old tightness in my chest return. He hadn't learned a thing. He wasn't embarrassed. He was regrouping. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my parents with a short note. "This is what I'm dealing with, just so you know." 2 days later, a new message came, not from Mark, but from Vanessa. "We know you're upset. You've made your point. The card thing was unnecessary and cruel. We're trying to raise a child, Ruth. Maybe think about that before you act out of spite." Spite. That word rolled around in my head like a marble. Smooth, cold, small. Spite would have meant I cared enough to hurt them. The truth was simpler. I just stopped volunteering to be used. I didn't reply to her either. Silence can be louder than anger. For a week, nothing. No calls, no guilt messages. I started sleeping better. I read again, real books, not just contracts or client files. Daniel took me to a small Italian place downtown, and for the first time in months, I caught myself laughing without thinking about who might need me next. But peace never lasts long with people who thrive on chaos. That Saturday morning, I was halfway through making coffee when someone knocked on my door. It wasn't the polite, quick knock of a neighbor. It was hesitant, uneven. When I opened it, I froze. Madison stood there, backpack on, hoodie too big for her, a small rolling suitcase at her feet. Before I could even speak, she said, Dad dropped me off. I blinked. What? She shifted her weight awkwardly. He said you owe me an apology, and I'm supposed to stay here until you say it. For a second, I thought she was joking. My brother was many things. Selfish, manipulative, but even for him, this felt surreal. I looked over her shoulder, expecting to see a car idling at the curb, maybe Vanessa waiting. There was nothing. Just the cold, empty street. Come inside, I said finally. She walked past me without hesitation, kicked her shoes off like she'd done it 100 times, and collapsed onto the couch, scrolling through her phone. I stood there trying to make sense of it. My niece, alone, dropped off like a delivery package. I made her breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. She ate quietly, eyes still on her screen. After a while, she asked, "Are you still mad about Christmas?" "No," I said slowly. "I was upset that no one corrected you when you said what you said. Sometimes adults forget to show kids what's kind." She shrugged. "Mom said you always overreact." "Did she?" "Yeah, she said you like people to feel sorry for you." The words landed softer than her father's email, but cut deeper. I opened the drawer, took out the art set I'd bought her, still pristine in its packaging, and placed it on the table. "Do you remember this?" I asked. She looked up. "Mom said you got it at the dollar store." I unwrapped it carefully, revealing the boutique label underneath. Her eyes widened just slightly. "I bought it because you're talented," I said. "Not because I wanted anyone to say thank you, but I do wish you'd seen it before you believed what they told you." She didn't answer, just stared at the pencils, the paper, the blending tools. Then she nodded once, quietly, and went back to scrolling. That night, I gave her the guest room. Clean sheets, a spare blanket, a little lamp shaped like a star. She didn't say goodnight, just closed the door behind her. Around 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Mark. "So she's there. Good. Maybe now you'll see how unfair you've been. You owe her an apology. She's just a kid." Not a word about her safety. Not a question if she'd eaten, if she was okay. Just another manipulation disguised as parental concern. I stared at the text until the screen went dark. My hands shook, not from fear, but from fury. I opened my notes app and started typing, one bullet point after another. Rent, 3 times. Art camp, $900. Groceries, countless. Emergency bills. Mockery in front of family. Laughed instead of correcting her. Dropped his own child on my doorstep. It wasn't a list anymore. It was a record. The evidence of how long I'd been carrying people who thought they could treat me like their safety net and still sleep at night. This wasn't boundaries anymore. This was war disguised as family. When I finally turned off the lights, Madison's breathing drifted softly from the guest room. She was just a child. Innocent in some ways, poisoned in others by the words of her parents. I lay awake for a long time, thinking of what kind of man uses his daughter as a messenger. Somewhere between midnight and morning, I decided, this ends here. Sunday morning came gray and slow, the sky the color of unwashed linen. I woke to the smell of toast burning faintly from the kitchen. Madison was at the table, wearing one of my oversized sweaters, earbuds in, humming softly while scrolling through TikTok. "Morning," I said. She pulled one earbud out. "Morning." I sat across from her, watching how naturally she fit in here, like this was routine. "Did your dad say when he's picking you up?" She shrugged. "He said whenever you're ready to say sorry." I exhaled through my nose, steady. "He shouldn't have said that to you, Madison. This isn't your job." She tilted her head, unsure what to do with that sentence. Then, after a pause, she said, "Mom said you only bought the art supplies so you could brag to people." That one landed hard. Colder than her Christmas jab. Not because of the words themselves, but because they'd been practiced, fed to her. I stood up, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out the art set again, the one she hadn't touched. I placed it in front of her gently. "Your mom's wrong," I said. "I bought this because I believed in you, because I saw how happy you were drawing that day at the park. No one was watching, and you looked free." She blinked, the kind of blink you do when someone says something you don't know how to disprove. After breakfast, she went back to her room. I sat with my laptop trying to distract myself with work, but an email notification appeared that stopped me cold. Subject: Concern regarding guardian status for Madison R. Monroe. From School Counselor, Cedar Hill Middle School. My stomach tightened. "Dear Ms. Collins, we received information suggesting that you might be handling school pickup and paperwork for Madison Monroe moving forward. Before updating our records, we'd like to confirm your guardianship status and any relevant documentation. Please respond at your earliest convenience." My heart started to hammer. They'd started planting seeds, subtly, quietly, like they always did, trying to make it look like I was taking over responsibilities, so when I inevitably said no, it would seem like my failure. I hit reply. No guardianship, no legal responsibility. Madison is visiting temporarily. Any suggestions otherwise are false. Within 10 minutes, my phone rang. The school counselor's voice was polite, apologetic. I'm so sorry, Ms. Collins. We just needed clarification. Madison's mother implied there may be changes coming, but she wasn't specific. I forced my tone steady. There are no changes. Her parents have full custody. I had no idea she'd even contacted you. Understood, Mom, the counselor said quietly. Thank you for clarifying. When the call ended, my hands were still trembling. Not from fear, but disbelief. They were escalating, turning boundaries into narratives. I called Mark immediately. He answered on the second ring, his voice dripping with irritation. What now? What did you tell Madison's school? I asked, cold and direct. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Vanessa might have mentioned you help out sometimes. Don't be paranoid. Paranoid? I repeated. They emailed me asking about guardianship. That doesn't happen by accident. He sighed like I was the exhausting one. You're overreacting again. Maybe you should relax. It's obvious you care about her. You've basically been her second mom anyway. The audacity of it left me momentarily speechless. I am not her second mom. I am her aunt. And what you're doing, using her, manipulating people, it's over, Mark. He scoffed. You can't just walk away from family. I let the silence stretch, then said very clearly, watch me. Then I hung up. For a few seconds, I just stood there in my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the quiet. And then, finally, the realization hit. Not sadness, not guilt, but release. That evening, when Madison came out for dinner, I told her gently, You're going home tomorrow. I've already called your parents. She looked down at her plate, playing with her fork. Are you mad at me? No, sweetheart. I'm mad at the way grown-ups sometimes forget to be good examples. She didn't reply, but I could see something soften in her. That night, she slipped a small folded paper under my door before bed. A drawing. The two of us sitting on my couch, her sketchbook open, a mug of coffee beside me. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, I know the sketch kit wasn't from the dollar store. Sorry I said that. The next morning, I drove her home. No confrontation, no dramatics. Just dropped her off at the curb, where Mark stood waiting, arms crossed. Vanessa stayed on the porch, pretending to check her phone. Madison hugged me before getting out. Thanks for breakfast, she whispered. Anytime, I said. And Madison, don't believe everything adults say when they're angry. She nodded, eyes glistening, and walked away. When I got home, I sat in my car for a long moment before going inside. My hands were steady now, my breathing calm. The war was over, not because I won, but because I stopped showing up to fight. Weeks passed. Silence. Real silence this time, not the brittle, waiting kind. No guilt-laced messages, no emergencies, no urgent favors disguised as family duty. I fixed my washing machine, repainted my living room, bought the winter coat I'd talked myself out of 3 Christmases in a row. I even booked a spring trip to Italy, a place I'd dreamed of, but always postponed because someone needed help. One night, Daniel came over, saw the confirmation email open on my laptop, and grinned. You actually did it? I did, I said, smiling back. Non-refundable ticket and everything. He raised his glass. To finally living your life. I lifted mine too. To finally being done apologizing for it. Later, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. The laughter at that dinner table, the insult, the silence, the manipulation. How a single cruel sentence from a child had cracked open years of imbalance. People always say family is forever. Maybe that's true. But boundaries are too. And they're the only reason love can survive without breaking you. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. For once, there was no anxiety attached to seeing their names. Just quiet recognition. Before turning out the light, I whispered to myself, it took being called cheap to realize my worth. I wasn't their wallet. I was just the only one who'd never walked away. And now I finally had.